Well, this week, the trial of accused Fort Hood gunman Nidal Hasan is finally set to begin. This after he released documents exclusively to Fox News in which he renounced his U.S. citizenship and confirmed his ties to radical cleric Anwar al-Awlaki. So will the government still insist on classifying the massacre as workplace violence rather than what it obviously was, terrorism? Joining us with his thoughts, one of the heroes and survivors of that attack, Staff Sergeant Sean Manning, who was shot a number of times by Mr. Hasan. Sean, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So, in your view, does this basically just settle the question of whether or not this was terrorism?
I think that it does, but also I think the government has known this even prior to the shooting. So, I hope that now that it's out and now that they can't basically suppress this information, that they will classify the shooting as a terrorist attack.
So this guy, who, by the way, has received almost $300,000 in government pay while in jail, this guy, Hasan, didn't keep his radical views to himself. They were known to the government, weren't they?
Yes. Even as far back as 2007, his peers and his coworkers knew that he was radicalized and knew that he had some pretty extreme views. And obviously the FBI had intercepted the emails between him and Anwar al-Awlaki. So.
And they did what about it?
Absolutely nothing. They said, according to the Webster report, they said it was politically sensitive, and they refused to interview him or actually tell the Army about it, which Hasan was a commissioned officer, so he had a security clearance. And, of course, he has access to classified information. So, why they thought that was a good idea, I don't know.
So when he was shooting at you that terrible day, screaming Allah Akbar, it must have been clear to you that this was an act of terror.
Yeah, it was definitely clear. And obviously, since the shooting happened, the more I've learned about him, the more frustrated and angry I've become that, how could this guy have remained in the military? Not only was he incompetent as a soldier, he was also an incompetent psychiatrist. And yet the government thought that it was okay for him to deploy with my unit to Afghanistan. So.
How do you feel when you see the government insisting that this was merely an act of what they're calling, quote, workplace violence? Are you insulted by that?
Very insulted. I think it undermines the sacrifice that the victims and those who were killed that day went through. This was an act of terrorism, in essence, an act of war. These guys should be recognized for, their sacrifice.
Staff Sergeant Sean Manning, a survivor of that attack. Thanks a lot, Mr. Manning. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.